So the recording is up and we are live, and now I can immediately switch over to share my screen. There we are. So I have a different screen layout, so bear with me for a bit. And I do this. No, I think that's a bit too wide. How's this? Getting better?
Looks good.
Works fine on my 4K screen.
Yeah, good for you. Right. So the topic for today, it's the first workshop session in a month. So that means we will talk about the roadmap. We had the opportunity to talk about the roadmap in July and in August, and August is for many, including myself, also a vacation period. That means that maybe there's a little less. However, we had been quite busy, and now the network is gone. And now the network was gone, of course. So how do you read me?
Screen is still recovering. Give it a moment, but we hear you.
Yep. Okay, cool. So we will talk with what had been done, not within the last 60 days, but I'll adjust the filter to just the last 30 days. So we're talking about the period of August. In the period of August, we had, as expected, a little less than our usual amount of ticket throughput with just 50 tickets. However, there are some important and crucial ones inside. Let's see where they show up, because I haven't taken a look on individual categories. Let's start with feature requests. So we looked into workarounds or handling some of the issue, which are actually also hitting users from time to time, because you might experience yourself with either the mirror infrastructure or directly using download.opensource.org, or just how tooling behaves, that sometimes there are problems to or let's say network in general. There can always be the case that something isn't reachable. So in our OpenQA and OpenQA test, we also see that. Either what we see there is that there are problems with OpenQA, like the OpenQA server itself might not react while we conduct a test, or in that case, while installing packages, and then there can be various problems. So this is why we also implemented some fixes or some features there, because there's so many of those. I'm not knowing exactly what we did. Oh yeah, we did use a tool which I can recommend to all of you, which is simply called retry. It's in Tumbleweed, so you can do zipper in retry, and then you can call zipper, and then you can put retry as a prefix in front of the commands that you know might be failing. And in this case, we already had retry for running an explicit zipper refresh and then trying to install a package. And the thing that we did add here is the -e option, which is exponential backoff, which is in particular useful when anything about network traffic. When something doesn't work with a network, don't retry immediately, but wait longer and longer until you retry. And we had multiple places where we install packages in the OpenQA and OpenQA tests. So this is why we added that exponential backoff in all. Provide a way to get a VM snapshot at a certain step. That can be useful. So it was a recent request. Of course, it was possible to save snapshots of, or let's say to save the QCore images of generated installations in OpenKTest for very long. But this is at a certain step. Like, if something fails at a certain step and you want to force saving that, even though the QEMU instance is not properly shut down or anything like that. So let's see. That's the pull request add support for backing up disk during tests. So that was the version 30 of OS Audience. Yeah, basically you don't need to change anything if you're requesting to save QCOW snapshots. That should still work. It's just that we can adjust the timeout. If maybe that takes longer, but it's basically the same. No, sorry, I was wrong. It's actually a new test API function, save storage. So that one can be called. And with that, you can save all storage devices in the backup. And that can be called anywhere within a test. So yeah, try that out. So then what else? In OpenQA, use scenario definition instead of job groups. I would like to show that because the OpenQA and OpenQA test serve as an example. Okay. And what we did there is, you might know this open SUSE job groups repository. And what we did is removed the job group template from within there, meaning that we now don't have the schedule for the OpenQA and OpenQA test saved in OpenQA anymore. Okay, so if you take a look in the OpenQA OpenSUSE org instance, it doesn't have any of this definitions of the schedule anymore, like the scenarios. So where is it then? It's just within the Git repository itself in the scenario definition files. Looks very similar to job templates, but it's just defined in here using some fancy YAML features. So we are merging in the common keys into that definition, and we are saving that single file for both when you want to schedule tests when a pull request to this repository is open, as well as when the tests are triggered after merge in the main OpenQA instance. And that approach can be used for more cases. And we do that, of course, within the repository which we control, so that it serves as a good example for the future. And so far, I don't think we have seen any problems related to that. So eventually, we might suggest to use that approach more and more for other products as well. Apache response time alerts, okay. There was a Spike solution about filter OpenQA to-do jobs on /test belonging to one review spot. So that could be very interesting to you that are involved with SLE maintenance update review, but it's a Spike solution yet. There is a draft pull request, and you're very welcome to take a look into that. So the idea is that one can filter in tests based on, well, I suggested regex, but now we will for now we will go with glob parameters, but those can be combined. So a nice example is mentioned here. For example, you can say everything that has kernel in the job group name, multiple job groups matching that, but not development, and then 2 to 1, and then this shows an overview or a list of tests. That's a Spike solution, so you're welcome to take a look into that Spike solution, into the idea, and see if that would help you in your daily life. Then there was one thing that there is this force result feature, and it wasn't possible to do that on a canceled job, and now that's also possible to do that on canceled jobs. So effectively, jobs that are not completed to the end. So that's nice. And that's about it with feature requests. Not that many. We had been working on some regressions and crashes. Load, test fails. So yeah, okay, also not anything that I think we need to present in more detail. there is a big section in infrastructure and blank, and you can see quite some which are related to the ongoing data center moves that SUSE is conducting. For example, you can see here that we disassembled some machine in the server room Nuremberg 1 Serve 2, and we moved them to what we call Nuremberg 2, or the Franken Campus Basement Lab that's in the new main Germany SUSE office.
Like Oliver is having troubles again.
Yeah, Jitsi says so.
Let's wait a minute or so. Perhaps it recovers.
I can hear you.
Yes.
If you like, I can try to refresh the screen. What does it mean if Jitsi says, it says connection good. So can you hear me well again?
Yes, now we can
Yeah.
hear you.
Okay,
And
so
hopefully the screen will be not completely blurry in a few seconds.
right. I could hear you well over the time, so it was just the traffic going out then. I see. So yeah, some machines had been moved, and I ordered some cables. Then blank. So changes to certificates. The let me see. Some to point out is yes. So what we already did in before is we did migrate the VM serving OpenGA OpenSUSE org to the new data center Prague 2. And as a follow-up task to that was a problem with a bare metal host. So this task was to fix the O3 bare metal host booting from iPixie now. So not Pixie, which is, so it was this task to support a modern UEFI HTTP boot setup. When new machines support iPixie with UEFI boot over the network directly. So we have that in place. And then also we want to still keep the old test running. So those things had been conducted. In the meantime, for the second big OpenGA instance, which is OpenGA SUSE DE, we also needed to set up some new machines, which is set up new Prague 2 OpenGA worker. So happy that we could finally resolve this task just yesterday. And also what we did just resolve is the migration of OSD VM. So that's OpenGA SUSE DE, the second big VM. Overall, I think in particular, the second move after the experience from the first one was going really smoothly. We had about, 22 terabyte of data that we wanted to sync while keeping the downtime low as possible. The effective downtime was about, Marius, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was about 2 hours or so, where the old OpenGA SUSE instance was read-only until we could turn the new instance up read-writable again.
Right, so I think just the VM handover went pretty smooth.
Yeah. And what we did while the new VM was up and running and working on new jobs already in the background, still syncing over some terabytes of old result data so that the previously completed jobs would, for some intermediate time, show empty screenshot boxes and no logs, but they were still present in the database, and then eventually would fill in the gaps if anybody actually noticed, because it was only in some cases, but at least one person found jobs with empty screenshot boxes, so that's good. And yeah, I mean, some related problems about that, and then not being able to reach the network, and then the network setup's different, and IPv6 and all those. So yeah, That's about the resolved and concluded task. Any questions, notes, or additions to what we had done in the last working period? Seems good. Right. So then let's get back to the overview. So top level view. We have these four sagas. This view did not change since the last reporting period. So from top to bottom, the highest priority is that we would have a proper setup in Prague 2 and Nuremberg 3, the new data centers that are planned as replacement for the old one. And as I showed, some of those tasks that we did in the last months had been crucial, and they had also been an important prerequisite so that we now serve both our main OpenKI instances from the new data center, and now we can slowly fade out the use of the old data center, because there's still some worker resources in old data center, but it's, you know, step by step, little by little, less and less. We rely on those and run from the new data center. And I will show you some tasks related to that, which will definitely cause some disruption. So I apologize upfront about that. That's something that, you know, I think with the resources and the manpower that we have, cannot be fully avoided. A second topic is OpenQA for SUSE customers. So the idea is there to provide like a streamlined enterprise experience using and including OpenQA. And the third one, the oldest one, is full version control awareness. I showed you this one example of OpenQA and OpenQA tests using the scenario definitions from a Git repository. So it's not relying on any data in an OpenQA instance directly. And based on that example, we also want to make other distributions use that. And then the fourth one, which is linked to the first, an up-to-date and current QA setup in SUSE, because, you know, it also means that we took over the maintenance and administration of some older machines, and then it was an important prerequisite for data center migration, but it's actually also still ongoing. In some cases, we have physically moved some machines where the current use is unclear, or at least where we have some cool ideas of how we can make more efficient variable hardware. So if we want to go into more detail, let's take a look on what the current backlog now looks like. So in total, we have currently 99 tickets. Our limit is 100, so that's just one short of the limit, and nearly every day now we scratch that limit, which is a bit painful, because, you know, if we exceed that number, it just means that we are losing focus, and we will not be able to keep all the tasks that are pending in mind. So, but that also shows that there are urgent requests coming in, or regressions, which is mostly related to the migration of the infrastructure. And, you know, somebody's bringing up like, hey, why are tests for this certain worker class not scheduled anymore? Or, you know, the bootloader screen looks now different because we have a different iPixie boot server and all those things. A bit unfortunate, but yeah, that's what's going on. This time I will go from top to bottom. So there are two new tickets. I showed you that time boxed solution with a draft that spike to filter jobs by job group names, so that a review squad in air quotes would be able to find their jobs on OpenQA directly, not relying on any external tooling. And so this is the actual proper feature request after that spike solution turned out to be fine to show us a path forward. where we say like, okay, that looks like the way to go. Now we can do, this is still new, so it wasn't estimated yet. And now the next step could be that we do the proper implementation, including full unit test coverage, documentation, help text. And another one, so that again is related to the migration. This is also why it's mentioned here. Ensure no job results are present in the file system for jobs that are no longer in the database. You know, due to the approach that we took, as I stated earlier, we brought up the new instance while results have not been fully synced yet in the background. We envision the case, which might be that there are drop result directories in the file system which the OpenQA instance doesn't know about. Maybe OpenQA handles those automatically, could be, but it's unlikely. So what we're thinking about is some kind of resyncing task or some kind of validation script that cross-checks the content on the file system against what's the database references to ensure that there are no, there's not like gigabytes or terabytes of data of inaccessible job results just filling up a useless storage. In workable, we have currently 22 tasks which are workable, meaning well-defined and ready to be picked up and work on. One is again related to OpenQA and OpenQA test. This case reduced the duplication of what we have in this test and in the main OpenSUSE/lead test distribution. Think of some helper functions like booting a system, handling the grub screen. This is something that we need in the OS Audience Registry OpenQA, just the same as OS Audience Registry OpenSUSE. And with this timebox solution, we want to explore what is currently possible, also keeping the wheels approach in mind, OS Audience plugins, where we should be able to say, can we extract some of those helper functions into an external repository and use them in multiple test distributions, which again should be a precursor, an example for the future, so that we can suggest use in a broader way, so that in the end also Audience Registry OpenSUSE can be structured better in multiple repositories where we would have clear ownership for the multiple repositories. Then again, related to the migration, we have, as I stated, we have the main VM in Prague 2, but there are still some worker resources served from the old location, and this is about shifting the bare metal tests also to the new location. Directly linked to that is gradually phase out Nuremberg 1 based OpenQA workers. You can imagine, it's like, this is like a partial prerequisite for that, but also that one, what it effectively could mean. How could we conduct the phase out of Nuremberg 1 based OpenQA workers? We could just switch off machines one by one. In some cases, we really don't know what they're being used for, some special cases. I mean, the generic case of Emo, x86, 64, same as for ARM, same as for Power and S390, we know and we will serve from Park 2, but sometimes people brought in special worker class definitions, and it's a bit too much effort to check each and every worker class to ensure that it's already served from a new location. So another approach could be to say, just switch off, at least temporarily, the Nuremberg 1 based workers, and then see which tests do not have any worker matching worker class from a new location. And then we can make sure that we provide the proper resources from still present location. Let's see. So yeah, this is why this task is also still open. Set up new proc to OpenGA workers. I would say the majority of the work had been done already, but not all the machines are fully used yet. Yeah, also this and this, some look very similar to that. Let me mention some other important feature which are hard to find in between. For example, QAM bot comments on IBS. That ticket is becoming a bit older. It's only related to SLE maintenance testing, but of course I know that for many of you that is an important use case. And effectively, the goal there is that, you know, we have this QAM bot. What it is doing is in IBS, build SUSE, it's filling this role of reviewer for the group. I think it's called QAM OpenQA, right? And if all the tests are fine, then QAM OpenQA approves. But if the tests are not fine, then you don't see on a release request what is blocking. This is why sometimes, I mean, the experts know how to find that information. Like, okay, you can follow Smelt and maintenance dashboard, and you can take a look in OpenQA to find like, okay, they're test failing. This is why it's not approved. But it's not straightforward, and this is why we have often questions like, hey, this maintenance release request is still pending. What's blocking the approval? Why is it not approved yet? It could be because maybe tests are actually still running, or it could be because tests have already completed, but are not all okay, right? And I would like to see comment by QAM as we have in many other cases already in case of review bots, where it says like, okay, I cannot approve, but this is the reason. Like, at least this test failed, right? All right. That's about workable. So what is currently in progress? We have yeah, migration. There's one mentions migration. So our monitoring dashboard doesn't properly references in all the graphs anymore the new OpenQA instance because it actually the host name changed. So this is why the change is needed there to make sure that it actually still ends up is the, you know, pretending to be the same old host. We have just yesterday again, Phoenix, I think you also mentioned the unresponsiveness of the web UI, which we had in before, and we assumed it would still be reproducing in the new location, but there was a possibility that the new location would actually behave different because it's a different virtualization cluster that the machines are running on. But actually now we know that the same problem happens in before, which was actually the more likely hypothesis to follow. And we have one very simple remedy, which is a simple limit of jobs running concurrently. Let me show you this. OpenGA OpenSUSE.org is currently running 140 jobs. But now it's a possibility to simply limit the number of jobs running on the web UI side. And if the web UI is hitting that limit, then it shows after here with an explanation to say something like 300 jobs are running, limited by server config. And then over the past 2 days, we already did 2 steps of limiting OpenGA SUSE from 300 down to a lower limit to prevent the situation where all the Apache workers are exhausted and then you as a human operator are not able to access the web UI because there are too many workers uploading results or something. Then yeah, some other things which I don't need to go into too much detail about. Now, feedback. So what had been picked up and what are things that we wait on, or where we are looking for user feedback or from usual feedback from other team members. Bare metal control OpenQA work in Nuremberg 2. There was one our PC machine in Nuremberg 1, which was serving a role of a bare metal control host, Drainage 1. That one had been moved just the past day, had been switched off, and had been moved to Prague 2, or is currently in the process of being moved. This is why it's not available right now. This is why we moved over the bare metal control worker instances to Nuremberg 2. So in one step. We have observed a regression in the stability of multi-machine tests, or you guys have also observed that, and which is this ticket. So this ticket could also be rephrased with a lot of multi-machine tests fail in OpenK SUSE infrastructure, and that seems to have happened since August this year. So for about 1 month now, we see an increase in the fail rate. And the reason for the regression is not exactly understood. So there is currently not really any improvement work going on. It's really just, trying to handle the fallout and collecting all the data to really find out what's happening. Some remedies had been tried, like now only running multi-machine tests from the new Prague 2 location. Marius, am I right that multi-machine tests should only be running for x86 64 from within a single rack? Only all those worker 33 up to 40, right?
Yes, only the Prague located workers, which should be all in one rack.
Right, but the problem still happens. Sure?
Yes. Also, I must say, when I looked into the most recent failure that was pointed to me yesterday, it looked more like a test issue. So I will look into it today again.
Yes.
Maybe I can find out more.
It's true. So I would put it like this. Of course, in this area, in particular of multi-machine tests, by definition, they are more demanding than single machine. So we treat them as first-class citizens, but still there are more parameters which can influence the testability. Because, even if you're running within one machine, then there can be more things going wrong than when you do things within one emo virtual machine. And what we have here is multiple physical machines. They are within the same rack, but the network transfer goes over one or two top of the rack switches. So maybe it's about jumbo frames not enabled on the top of the rack switches, but it could also be something as simple as a regression in test code, where maybe some scenarios were setting a smaller MTU size in before, and now they don't do that anymore. Or maybe some other changes which influence that. So apparently it has something to do with MTU mostly. But of course, sometimes people find problems in multi-machine tests and assume it's the very same issue. So, maybe we want to rephrase the ticket subject and say, this is only if we want to narrow down and say this is only about anything related to the MTU size. But it's also hard to put the finger on that because, it's like one machine tries to reach the other over various network protocols and you don't get a response. And then, of course, that could have multiple reasons. Well, we'll see. All right, support move of PowerPC machines to Prague 2. I mentioned already, just within this week, some PowerPC machines had been switched off at the old location, had been prepared for the move. They had been physically transported already to the new data center. and they are in the process of being set up. This ticket says support move because I'm not physically handling those machines, but we are instructing other people to do that, and we are helping them, and then we will at least logically make sure that those machines are set up in a new location and serve the original purpose. Something about salt states and GitLab CI pipeline handling. So more and more we are also improving what we have there, becoming quite an elaborate solution. More migration related work, like something as simple as DNS doesn't properly work. So what you can see here, that now Prague 1 workers, Prague 1 is the SUSE office location at Prague, they are not able to reverse DNS resolve the new FQDN of the OpenGay SUSE instance, but all the other machines are fine. But yeah, this is effectively also a consequence of the migration move now, because the host name has changed. And similar to the PowerPC move, there's also support move of S390 mainframe or mainframes to Prague 2, where again, same but different. We are instructing people what to do. We are helping them, and we are also, tracking what they do and then handle the outcome accordingly, so that in the end the result should be that we can properly serve SV90 tests from the new Prague 2 location and not rely anymore on any old location. And then also, this is also related to the migration. There are many tasks around that, but I need to mention them because that means for you guys, you understand what we are busy with. And this iteration regarding the migration of data centers will continue like that at least over the course of September, most likely also within October. But of course, until the end of the calendar year, we want to be done with most of the work, or we need to be done, because there's the physical evacuation happening of the old location. But we are on good track with that. And that's about it. So, questions, notes, wishes from your side? Nope, doesn't seem to be the case. So, what I can do is mention what we have planned for the next week. So, in the next week, we want to talk about lessons, or we want to conduct a lessons learned meeting. So we would really appreciate your contributions there, your participation, about a pull request, a change in behavior, making new lines in script run fatal, which was a change in OS audience that caused a lot of OpenGate test failures. Many of those failures had been expected because, that's what the line says. Make this problematic behavior fatal, because it's actually not working as expected. But it still surprised many people because, which is quite natural, most don't follow the development in OS audience, so you don't know that breaking change like that is coming up. And so we want to conduct that lessons learned meeting to see what was done in a good way and what are the things that could be done to improve. So I would be happy to see many of you joining next week. I personally won't be there, but Liv will lead that session. So with that, thank you for your attendance, and I'll stop the recording. I will still be around, and I will be happy to discuss more with you a bit about our roadmap.